Now, Johannesburg's 33rd Pride Parade returns on the 29th of this month. This after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID-19. Now, the parade is aimed at creating non-homophobic, non-sexist and non-racist spaces in and around the city. Author and investigative journalist Tshegofatso Magolego has written a queer-centered children's book titled Sipho's Pink Dress, and he's here today to discuss the book and the significance of the Pride Parades. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much.
I think when I engaged the content around you and what you do in the queer space, I was very shocked because I thought, how does he have the courage to write a children's book around being queer and being, and I don't want to call it different, but just liking things that others wouldn't necessarily like. Tell us about the thought process and the experience thereof.
It was very important for me to write such a book, Rafua, because number one, our queer identifying people are facing a whole lot of injustices in South Africa. This is despite the fact that we have a constitution that says that the rights of those who are queer should be protected, and this cannot be. I mean, having worked as an investigative journalist, I've worked on so many stories, stories on hate crimes, stories on transgender people who are unable to access basic health care at our hospitals, which for me was very shocking because, I mean, if you say that all South Africans have the right to access basic health care, then that means transgender individuals should too. And for me, it just speaks on the thing to say that queer rights are also human rights and we should respect those who identify as queer.
Tell us about the story that is contained within the book, the narrative. Does it relate at all to your personal story and your journey as being aware of who you are and perhaps being accepted?
Yeah, well, how I'd like to describe the book is that I call it a protest and a celebration of gender non-conforming individuals. I think for me, it is a story of resilience, a story that is often not told because there is a lot of pushback when we as authors want to tell such stories. So it is a book that follows Sipho, who is the protagonist, to school in Soweto. And when they get to school, they are faced with a whole lot of challenges because number one, Sipho has long hair. Sipho is wearing a dress, and not only is Sipho wearing a dress, but they are wearing a pink dress. Now, when they get to school, the teachers do not understand what's happening with Sipho because Sipho was assigned male at birth. They do not understand why Sipho is wearing a pink dress. And I think this just goes to show that there is a whole lot of information and education that still needs to happen without teachers, without parents, and without children at the primary level.
Yeah, and that is such an important point because I was going to come to that in terms of the education of the teachers, you know, the principal, the school governing bodies, and so in understanding that this is a thing where people are not necessarily the same as what you would define them to be, and therefore the schooling system needs to adjust to that. In terms of that education and that adjustment, have you found that there is a movement in the positive direction, or there's a lot of work that needs to be done?
There is a whole lot of work to be done. I mean, just barely 2 months back, a 15-year-old by the name Diro Mwalusi in Soweto died by suicide after being called a derogatory name by a teacher in class. And this cannot continue to happen in 2022, especially when we have policies that govern and say that children should be allowed to be themselves. If you were to look the word different in a dictionary, you will see that it would say that it's to be unusual or unheard of. And in the book, I try to put new meaning to the word different, and that's when Sipho's mother will come into play to say that to be different is to be you, and there is nothing wrong with being different. If anything, it should be celebrated and is a legendary thing to do.
That highlights the role of the parent as well.
Yes.
You know, in being able to understand and accept that this is what their child is, and to be able to narrate that discourse to everyone around the child's life. How do you find, in your experience, parents deal with what their children communicate to them in terms of what they want and who they are?
Yeah. It all boils down to the lack of information. I think books such as Sipho's Pink Dress are there to act as a weapon and a tool to assist both parents, teachers, and children to understand what it means to be different, or what it means to be queer identifying, or what it means to be gay. The thing that I find is that parents often they will hear what the society says, right? The society will dictate that being gay is wrong, which is an issue. And because when you get so many messages almost on a daily to say that being gay is wrong, you sort of almost want to believe that because that's what is being said by the society and the powers that be. And I mean, such books such as Sipho's Pink Dress, we don't often see such books, and hence why there is this lack of information that parents are dealing with. And I think it is up to us, it is up to all the departments of education, of health, and the government to make sure that information such as this is available for children and parents so that they are able and they are equipped to deal with children who identify as different.
I think it's probably the first of its kind that directly talks to children. But I wanted us to engage an issue around the just the broader sense in terms of our government and policies that include those who are not necessarily confining themselves to be male or female and have, you know, chosen a different path in their lives or were born that way, essentially. Do you find that our policies within government or related stakeholder setting is acknowledging and accommodating of people?
Not at all. I mean, the Combating and Prevention of the Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill has been sitting with Parliament for the past, I think, 4 years, and it hasn't been passed into law till this day. And the reason why that bill is very important is so that people who are queer identifying can be able to know that there is a law that specifically deals with me as a queer identifying individual, and there is a law that is able to protect me as a queer identifying individual. And this bill will specifically also assist the justice system to be able to identify and prosecute hate crime when it happens on the ground. Because currently what we're seeing is that if a hate crimes was to happen, the police will say, oh no, it's just another murder that has happened. And they do not have those skills, or those, they're not equipped enough, because this bill has been sitting with Parliament for 4 years and nothing has been done. Till this day, we have been calling for it to be passed into bill, but the powers that be, clearly, they don't see it quite important.
And of course, the political will in this instance and in many others is, of course, lacking. I want to get a little bit more personal with you as a person, Tshego, and I just want you to talk through the process of writing this and sharing this idea and the concept with the closest people around you. How did you find the entire process and really just putting together what we are talking about today?
I mean, when I did research, there was nothing like Sipho's Pink Dress available for me. And it just spoke on, I mean, even the narratives that we're seeing, or the representation that we're seeing on the media and in African literature, you can see that this is a single story that is being told. A black queer identifying story, it's often not told. And for me, that was really troubling. I thought to myself, I needed to contribute towards this. I have to at least write a book that will speak directly to people who identify as black and who also identify as queer. For me, it felt as if I was bandaging my own wounds, you know, with love, writing this book. It was a process of healing. It was a process that was really liberating for me as a gay man. And I mean, when I shared the book with my mother, she was just like ecstatic that I myself was content with being the person that I am, and I respected myself enough to be fully who I am supposed to be. And the response has been quite supportive from those who are close to me.
Have your family always been as supportive, or did you find yourself in a place where you were afraid to share who you really are for a while because you didn't know how you'd be received?
Yeah, so my late dad was quite homophobic,
Okay.
but he was never homophobic towards me. Right? So we would see characters like Senzo and Jason on TV, and he would get so frustrated with seeing two male figures kissing or being in a relationship. But when it came to me, he accepted me as his son. But my mother, on the other hand, she has been absolutely amazing. She held my hand from primary school up until now, right? She would even sit down with me to say that, how does it make you feel when you are being called names, when you are outside in the public spaces? And I'll explain to them that, listen, this is the person that I am, and I do not care what the next person thinks about me.
Will there be more? Will Sipho's Pink Dress have a sequel, perhaps a series? Because it is a journey. Life is a journey within itself. And there are different challenges that you'll face at different stages. And this is just one stage of an individual's life. So what are the prospects around Sipho's Pink Dress?
Oh, well, I do have a sequel to Sipho's Pink Dress. It is with my illustrator already, Kamogelo Molefe, who is based in Durban, and it will speak directly to parents to say that this is how you go about raising a queer identifying child.
Let's talk a little bit about Pride, the parade.
Yes.
I have someone who's close to me who obviously identifies as a gay person, and he wants to attend this, and he wanted to attend it with friends and all of them were like, no, we don't want people to know that this is the way we are. That stigma is so strong still, and it of course discourages him to be free to be who he is. Talk us through the importance of Pride Parade and breaking down stigmas of this nature, where people can't go out and have fun and just enjoy who they are because of what will people say.
It is extremely imperative for us to have the Pride Parades. I mean, number one, it is for us to say that we honor those who have come before us. But also it is about raising the injustices that we as queer people are still facing till this day. It is for us, for me, it is about saying that we need to have equal justice. We need to have equal opportunities for queer identifying individuals. And I would advise them to go to Pride.
They'll make new
it's
friends,
really nice.
perhaps.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they will find so many people. And when you start engaging people who look like you, people who identify as you, I mean, you would understand that, you know what, there is nothing wrong with me. And I think for them it will be a very liberating experience for them to go, because not only are we just celebrating, but we are protesting to say that injustices cannot continue to happen under the clearly not so watchful eye of our government.
Apart from the bill, what else would you suggest needs to be addressed immediately to support and protect the queer community in South Africa?
I think the gender marker is quite important as well when it comes to trans identifying individuals when they're supposed to go to the Home Affairs and get their gender markers altered. I think we're still facing an issue with the Home Affairs where it's sort of like a very lengthy process, and it's quite exhausting to be a transgender identifying individual in South Africa. And not only does that discourage you to go to the Home Affairs and get your gender marker altered, but it also contributes to your mental, health. It puts you under so much pressure, and hence why we're seeing a whole lot of queer people experiencing mental issues. It is because of those processes that they have to go to. You can't just go to the Home Affairs and say, I'm transgender and this is what I need on my documents. It's not that simple. It takes, for some people, it takes even years. So I think that that should be one of the most important things that the government should be doing and focusing on.
Yeah. And then as we wrap up, Tshegofatso, where can we access the book?
Yeah, so I am self-distributing and I am self-publishing, so people can contact me directly on my social media accounts, which are Tshegofatso Magolego on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Thank you so much for your time and the awesome work that you're doing to ensure that there is a wholesome inclusion within South Africa, whether you be the conventional person, individual, or someone who identifies differently. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That is Tshegofatso Magolego, who joined us there. He's the author of Sipho's Pink Dress, really just addressing issues around not necessarily confining to the conventional ways that people in any society are seen.